Thank you, Mary. I think you do indeed qualify to be a Lyons, and I believe you are a keeper, so we're going to keep you. Before I left that bar that I told you about earlier, the local tried again. He asked me if I knew what constituted an Irish 7-course dinner. He said it was a potato and a 6-pack of beer. When I finally left, he was recovering from a hit on the head with 6 of the courses still in their original package. We now enter into the current generation. We have my brother Bob Lyons from the shadows of Harvard University in Cambridge, Mass. and the shores of Maine. Bob is never without words. Bob goes through life like the characters in the comic strips who have clouds of words forever hovering over their heads. Bob. It's really true, Bob.
That's an awful way to introduce your little brother.
You used to be my little brother, you aren't anymore.
Lawrence, I'm beginning to use things that someday will be put on the shelf each night. And I'm not yet comfortable with them. I don't have as many things as you put on your shelf yet. I'm Robert Francis Lyons of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'm the 7th child the stork brought, and the 6th son of William Lyons and Mary Donahue of Yankton. I have a twin sister, Susan, and brothers too numerous to mention. I'm the grandson of William and Catherine Lyons of Charles Mex County, South Dakota, and the great-grandson of Jeremiah and Alan Lyons of Boston, New York, Chicago, and I just learned Kansas, Iowa, and County Waterford, Ireland. If you look carefully at the map on the wall, you know that they came approximately 7,500 miles to get to the promised land of the prairies. And with my wife, Nona Plessner, of New York City, I bring you greetings from Boston, the port city through which Alan and Jeremiah passed in 1844. You all know, or will know, especially when Bill McDonald speaks a little bit, of the traditional tale of the Lyons migration from Ireland, and how Jeremiah and Alan left County Waterford in 1844, landing first in Boston, were separated and reunited in New York, and how our great-grandfather helped build the railroads, then on to Chicago, and eventually farming in Iowa, and through my grandfather and descendants of Jeremiah, eventually to these prairies and plains of Dakota. That is the traditional tale often told and clearly believed by all present. However, the Lyonses always have married smartly, and I have married a very smart wife who is in Cambridge and involved in research. And with her assistance, I have discovered new evidence in Boston. And although disputed by some, it is believed by many, and certainly by those who would know me well, that the first Lyons in fact came over in 1620 as a stowaway on the Mayflower with the Pilgrims. Things had been going from bad to worse under the English, so young Jonathan Lehan, as the Lyonses were then called still in the 17th century, was sent ahead to scout out other options in New England. And when Jonathan arrived at Plymouth Rock, he peered out the porthole of his cabin to an encouraging sight in the clear blue New England sky. Smoke signals were being sent to the approaching Mayflower, and the signals read, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore, and send these the homeless tempest-tossed to us." I want my Uncle Bob to listen carefully. This message was being sent by the Wampanoag Indians of Massachusetts Bay Colony. to welcome the new immigrants from Europe. And to young Jonathan, fresh from oppression in Ireland, this all looked pretty inviting. Back across the stormy Atlantic, Oliver Cromwell, who was running things after King Charles I lost his head, was trying to teach the rebelling Irish another lesson. Cromwell had sent English soldiers to Drogheda, where women and children had fled to seek refuge in the sanctuary of that village church. But the English, who knew no boundaries in their oppression, entered the church at Drogheda and slaughtered each and every Irish mother and child. The remaining Irish rebels were relocated to a region north of Dublin, where it was said by Cromwell, quote, "There was not enough land to bury a man, not enough water to drown him, and not a tree tall enough to hang him. It was an infertile and parched land, an apt foretaste for life of later descendants on the prairies of Dakota." But young Jonathan's expectations of prosperity and liberty in New England were rapidly dashed after spending 6 months with the Puritans in Massachusetts. Those first Yankees had certain ways that an Irishman found burdensome and unacceptable. The Puritans did not allow dancing. There was to be no chewing or spitting of tobacco, especially in public. They had to go to church without a bell. They had to go to church not once but twice on Sunday. And you could get into trouble for nagging or insulting someone. Young Jonathan recorded that one Ursula Cole of Charlestown was convicted for reviling against her parish minister. And when convicted, she cried out. She would rather hear her cat meow than her minister preach. And for this she was flogged. This is true. A John Lee was arrested for publicly stating that the governor was nothing but a lawyer's clerk who picked men's pocketbooks. This cry would later be taken up by certain other descendants in Dakota. To this day, Jonathan also noted an old-fashioned brand of neighborhood watch. The Brown family of Ipswich, the father, mother, and daughter, reported to the court of the Bay Colony that they had seen one James Crick kissing Lou Perkins' wife Hester, and then tickling one another about the ribs. The Brown family continued to watch as the couple went out into the orchard for more serious business. James and Hester were whipped, but the Brown family was applauded for their vigilance, for they had not given way to idleness. The practice of piety among the Puritans required of men that they would labor in the vineyard without acquiring any love of the grape. Jonathan was especially skeptical after that first Thanksgiving in Plymouth Colony. He thought it rather nice of the Indians to share their corn with the new immigrants, but he did not desire that this should ever become a regular way of life. So Jonathan, discouraged, decided to return on the next boat to Ireland, which he did. And he gave counsel to the waiting Lord Lyons and Prince Phelan in County Waterford, that they might wait until conditions became less burdensome and more acceptable before making that permanent voyage to this new land. And so wait they did for 200 more years, until their anguished spirit and spent body could endure no more. So in 1844, in the words of Yeats, "Out of Ireland have we all come. Great hatred, little room, maimed us at the start. But with Irish wit, wet and dry, to the banks of this Missouri River nearby, have we all come this day and survive to tell again the tales upon which we thrive. We shall soon part today, but not before we have heard a cry to reconvene this noble gathering, when next our sails are filled and billowing in the wind, we look forward to our reunion once again.
I work in an environment where a suggestion is usually construed as an order. And I made a suggestion to my brother Bob that I would like a 50-50 ratio of fact and bull to be maintained. And
this is a compulsion only of some, trying to distinguish between truth and faction. Fiction. But if the Lyons genes should dominate, you would never be compelled to make such a distinction.
obviously my engineering background prevailed over my Irish background, because an Irishman would certainly never worry about what the ratios were. I believe, at least I hope, we will now hear from my cousin Dick Lyons from Millbank on the banks of the Keapaha River, or creek as it may be, the son of Dennis and Bessie Lyons. Dick has said he would talk to us on what life is like on the lone prairie. I have known Dick for a long time, and he could talk on a number of other things, but I made him promise not to.